What's up Sega gamers, Dan the Mega Driver here of the Sega Guys, here with another episode to talk about one of my favourite games of all time, that is NiGHTS Into Dream. Yes, the game so nice that I had to own it twice, that is both the PAL and the Japanese version here. Now I could say 100, 1,000, probably a million things I love about this game, but we're going to round it down to just 10 in 10 things we love about NiGHTS Into Dreams. We hope you enjoy. Number 1. There's nothing else like it. When you start NiGHTS, you're effectively asked to select a character, and then you're dropped into the psychedelic dreamscape that is NiGHTS Into Dreams. If you are playing this with no prior knowledge, other than that this was Sega's tentpole release from Sonic Team, released within months of Super Mario 64, you expect a 3D platformer, right? Well, you get a taste of that with Clarice and Elliot's walking sections, but if you're playing them, you're not really playing the game, or at least not playing it well. Their whole shtick is to reach the titular NiGHTS, free him from his chamber and merge with him. And then what you get is a mix of genres which delivers something totally unique. NiGHTS is not a platformer, though it is played from a traditional side-on perspective. The character makes their way through the courses in a 2.5D view, not unlike Pandemonium or Klonoa. But it's not so much that NiGHTS can fly, it's that he's always flying, so automatically the game is disqualified from being a platformer. So what is it then? Well, it's an objective-based action game where you're tasked with collecting these blue spheres, called blue chips, and to deposit them in the floating machine, called the Idea Capture, in order to finish the level. Stages consist of dreams set in the dream world of Nightopia, and each dream consists of 4 courses and a boss battle. Now, course is the correct terminology here. You don't just run from point to point in these stages, you go through them in circuits from a 2D perspective. So think of something like Sonic Rivals, but a million times more fluid, and, as we've already established, without any actual platforming. Without getting too much into the score-based gameplay right now, how you spend the 120 seconds you get for each course is entirely up to you, and there are dozens of things to do within each one. Bosses are something else entirely, all battled from the same side-on perspective, but each one mechanically different. Again, we'll get into that later. What's crazy is how these disparate parts all add up to one cohesive whole that is unlike anything else you have ever seen. A lot of players don't get NiGHTS for that reason, but really, it's that uniqueness which is why it remains relevant and compelling today. Number 2. The visuals. Visually, NiGHTS was widely praised for its graphics back in 1996, and you don't have to put on those rose-tinted 90s goggles to see why. It's bright, it's fluid, and it's colourful. We see a great mix of the Saturn's 2D and 3D prowess here. The polygonal worlds are immediately impressive. They're huge, detailed and varied, and despite some clipping, they stretch out for a decent distance. This is complemented by some stellar effects from VDP2, whether it's the gorgeous backgrounds and skyboxes, or effects like the mist in the final stage. The reflections in Soft Garden are particularly impressive. Character design is top notch too. Enemies are all 2D sprites, but drawn as CG renders to give off a 3D look. As a result, they blend in so seamlessly into the rest of the setting that the disconnect between 2D and 3D is never actually apparent. Clarice and Elliot are fully polygonal, and while they're not hugely detailed, they have enough expressionless and articulation to make them really feel alive. The bosses meanwhile are fantastic as well. Huge, fully 3D models, all unique and brilliantly animated and detailed. From the Snake King Gearwing to Claws who hops and swings across the arena, each one is not only imposing and impressive, but they ooze character. But the cherry on top is NiGHTS himself. The way he moves as he soars through each stage is breathtaking. His form twisting and bending in a way that feels natural as he moves through each course. Not only that, but NiGHTS transforms too, morphing into a merperson, a bullet and even a bobsleigh, with the transitions all impressively animated for the time and the hardware. Surrounding this charismatic aerial acrobat are an assortment of effects. Contrails follow NiGHTS' movement, as do a number of flashes and sparks, as NiGHTS fizzes around like an effervescent firework, and while the crosshatch transparencies are a small issue, it adds up to a sumptuous dance of colour and movement that serves as eye candy as much in the modern day as it did back in 1996. Number 3. The soundtrack. Part of NiGHTS' long-term appeal is its audio underpinnings, with a musical arrangement that manages to be all things eclectic, energetic and epic. Creating a soundtrack to complement such a unique gameplay style and setting must have been a daunting task, but in composer Tomoko Sasaki, Sega had a composer who created a score so perfect and memorable that it elevated the entire experience. When the game starts, the music is slow, often gentle, and very often cinematic as you navigate the title screen and menus. There's a surrealist charm about it, mixing an orchestral score with various other effects that create something that feels ethereal. Things ramp up as the stages start, with tracks becoming an up-tempo fusion of genres, which not only tie in with the dreamlike worlds, but add to the motivation of the player as they zip across each course. Paternal Horn and the Amazing Water serve as the introductory stage pieces, depending on whether you choose to play as Claris or Elliot, and whilst thematically they differ to complement their respective game worlds, they both contain many of the same elements which give the impression of slipping into a dream world. The trickle of high notes accompanied by the longer, deep instrumentation, all of which giving way to a high tempo bass which underpins the thematic score of the level. From there is the sort of stage-based accompaniments you'd expect, the mysterious gloom of NHC for Mystic Forest, an almost Christmas-like arrangement for Take the Snow Train for Frozen Bell. Suburban Museum is a pseudo-classical piece which perfectly suits a soft museum, whilst the industrial under construction is perfect for Stick Canyon. That goes double for the boss themes, which are unique for every boss, from the slow Gopal theme, Deep It Lies, and Jackal theme, The Mantle, to the frantic tracks, such as Elili Sparkle and The Dragon Gave a Loud Scream. Each track is unique and fitting and simply glorious. But beyond that, the scope and scale of the soundtrack is truly momentous. The iconic message from NiGHTS alternate with the super chilled out After the Dream and the post-run screen. You have the incredible cinematic scores for the CGI openings and endings, which I'll come on to shortly. The absolutely rocking remix of Relay's theme for the 2-player mode, and of course the credits track, the most famous song in the game, Dream Streams. When I first heard Dream Streams in the credits as they rolled for the first time in 1996, I was absolutely blown away. Even though I'd only unlocked the child version of the song at the time, I thought it was fantastic. A jewel in the soundtrack, much in a way that My Heart Will Go On and I Believe I Can Fly accompanied blockbuster movies. This felt like a watershed moment in games as they closed the gap on other media. I could go on and on about the soundtrack, but hopefully you get the idea. NiGHTS' soundtrack is everything, it has everything, yet despite its eclectic mix of genres and sounds, it fits the game perfectly. Number 4. The Silent Cinematic. The cutscene, a staple of modern gaming, where the player sits back and watches the story play out as if watching a TV show or movie, often with recognisable voice talent. NiGHTS is different, likely because it predates the cutscene revolution that followed the success of games like Metal Gear Solid. There are very few moments that could actually be considered in-game cutscenes. There's stuff like where the Nightmare and steal the Idiot orbs from Claris or Idiot that last about 5 seconds, and then there's a couple of boss intros. But bookending the game are some sumptuous intro and ending cinematics. Each character has their own relevant to them, and to be fair, they look pretty good for CGI from 1996. But what every cinematic shares is that there is no dialogue, save for one line spoken by Riala and some unnerving cackling. This elevates the game for me, accentuating the surrealistic dream world and giving the relationship between NiGHTS, Claris and Elliot more gravitas. Everything feels natural and relatable. It's a perfect example of show, not tell, of respecting your audience and having faith in the world and characters you've created. Going back to it now, it feels even more unique, given how just about every other game, including its sequel, has dialogue. Perhaps it was a decision made for budgetary or technical reasons, or maybe it was an artistic choice all along. But either way, it's another piece of NiGHTS' charm, a quintessential ingredient to this absolute masterpiece. Number 5. Perfect analog control. Flying requires precision in this game, particularly if you're chasing high scores and looking to perfect those runs. You can play this game with a digital controller, but NiGHTS was always destined to have a unique control. From early in its development, it was suggested that it would require its own input device, and thus, it was bundled with the Saturn's 3D analog controller. Now this Saturn pad may look a little goofy now, but it feels great and it handles amazingly well, allowing you to hit those links with relative ease. What's great about the pad is that it uses different analog technology to standard pads, so whilst your DualShocks and your N64 controllers are likely seeing stick drifts, the Saturn, and also the Dreamcast controllers, will seemingly go on forever. The Saturn pad is the grandfather to many, from the Dreamcast to the Xbox all the way to the modern day. The innovations were that potent that it had triggers half a decade before they were standard, and NiGHTS uses it perfectly. It still feels like the best use of 360-degree movement to me. It's so perfectly weighted and honed that the two have a symbiotic relationship. You pretty much can't have one without the other, and the looser analog style in later ports cements the Saturn version as the way to play. Number 6. The bosses. Like many games of the era, bosses are pivotal to the Knights experience. However, it's the approach that makes them stand out. These Nightmaren, as they're called, are all unique, not just in look and attack patterns, but in the overall functionality of the battle. Though Knights only has 3 forms of attack in that he has the dash, the grab and the paraloop, each boss requires a substantially different approach to defeat them. In effect, they're almost like time-based minigames, like puzzles to solve. Puffy, for example, the rotund rabbit from Elliot's first dream, is an iconic example. You can grab and bash Puffy as much as you want, but to win, you need to smash Puffy through the various walls of the arena, identify the weak structures, find the final wall, and then splat! Squash the rotund rabbit between a slab of scenery. Golpo requires you to dash across the arena, giving the fight an interesting use of 3D space. Claws, meanwhile, necessitates chasing him around and destroying his mouse-shaped rockets. Each boss is physically imposing. Each has their own theme and psychedelic battlefield, which adds yet another layer to the game's uniqueness. They're not overly challenging, especially once you figure out what you have to do, and they can't kill Knights, they just make you lose time until your protagonist wakes up, but defeating them quickly becomes the goal. Gilwing, for example, is a simple enough fight, just drill attack his head, but if you want that high score, you need to target his tail for a one-hit kill, something I've rarely done, though here is someone else doing it. Once again, there's layers and layers of appeal here. Audio, visual, the uniqueness, the challenge and the constant strive to beat them faster. Number 7. The Dreams. There are 7 dreams in Knights. What a coincidence this comes in at number 7, eh? And their genius level design is part of what makes the game classic. The themes are a part of that. Splash Garden and Spring Valley are as striking as any Sonic opening stages, boasting those iconic Sega blue skies and lush greens that welcome the player in. From there, you have the middle stages, which use relatively safe themes. A mysterious forest and a snow stage are hardly original, though they do have some unique features owing to their setting in the dream world, such as the car in Mystic Forest. Soft Museum and Stick Canyon, though, are much more creative, particularly the former with its terrain which is constantly pulsing and bouncing whenever Knights touches it. It's as impressive as it is enjoyable to play around in. But the real star is the stage design around the courses themselves. You can tell just how much thought has gone into tailoring each course to get the balance of challenge and fun, of risk versus reward, just right. The way that sections are set up to challenge the player to chase those links as they target that high score is fantastic. Occasionally sections will appear in other courses as sections intersect throughout the dream, which highlights just how clever the design is in linking the features of each course together. It's phenomenal stage design and represents Sonic Team at the peak of their powers. This is capped off with the beautiful Twin Seed stage. Whilst far more linear than the others, it serves as an epic and emotional finale to the game. Number 8. Easy to learn, tough to master. I mentioned in the first section that a lot of people say they don't get Knights, that they felt lost when starting the game. In truth, it is extremely simple. Knights into Dreams uses one directional input, whether that's the analog pad or the digital one, and primarily just one action button. In this sense, it very much has that pick up and play gameplay that classic Sonic games have. That one button makes Clarice and Elliot jump, and makes Knights dash, and that's it. Knights dash doubles as his corkscrew attack to take out enemies, again harking back to Sonic's jump/spin attack. When it comes to objectives, again, it's simple. Point Knights towards the blue orbs, take 20 of them to the metallic crab-like chamber, follow it up, then go back to the start. Simple, right? Do that for all 4 courses and battle the boss. Knights does not die, but he can run out of time, at which point Clarice or Elliot will be split from Knights and will need to complete the rest of the stage on foot, though if the giant egg catches them, it's game over. Once you understand the gameplay loop, Knights becomes an easy game to play and complete with a passing grade. However, it's improving on that grade, upping it to A for all dreams, getting that true ending and chasing those high scores where the depth of the game really comes into its own. At which point, repeated laps, tricks and bonuses really do come into play. But the bottom line is this: Knights is a simple and easy game to learn, but the depth will keep you coming back for years, or, like me, even decades. Number 9. A-Life. AI is a hot topic these days, but once again, Sega were decades ahead of the curve. Like Virtua Fighter 2's AI learning before, and Sonic Adventure's Chow Garden after, Knights into Dreams had a substantial A-Life feature. It's a huge save file, which meant I wasn't able to capture much in these playthroughs, but through the years I've got a lot of joy out of interacting with the NiGHTopians and the dream worlds themselves. Basically, the NiGHTopians, that is, the angelic creatures that live in the game, have a range of moods depending on what you do in the game. Beating stages and bosses make them happy, hurting them or even killing them makes them sad. Their mood drives the sound of the stage, so as you're hearing now, the music has different instrumentation depending on whether they're happy, content, ecstatic or sad. You can also hatch NiGHTopians from eggs found around the stages, and you can guide the orbs from defeated enemies into the NiGHTopians' eggs to create Mepians, which are like hybrids of the Nightmareans and the NiGHTopians themselves. It's really cool and interesting stuff. The population can also be seen in Christmas nights in streams, but for the sake of keeping this about the base game itself, we'll just put that to the side right now. But all in all, it's a substantial feature, and one that you can easily get lost in, just as I did. Number 10. Arcade Score Attack Perfection. More than anything else, Nights into Dreams is a classic old school score attack game. Sure, it's an audio and visual masterclass on the Saturn, has sublime silent storytelling and handles like a dream, but it's the high level play and endless replayability that elevates it to the status of true classic. I've mentioned already that the 120 seconds you get for each course are for you to run as you see fit. Whether you choose to blast through the stages and get those passing C ranks, wander through the courses and curate your NiGHTopian A life, or chase high scores. Nights has an abundance of opportunities for score chasing. The first is demolishing that idiot palace with 20 blue chips as soon as possible to get a nice score bonus. But already, risk versus reward creeps in. It may be straightforward enough in some courses, but others where you can't quite get those 20 blue chips in one lap. Do you try to rack up those points by doing another circuit, or do you double back to maximise the time bonus, knowing that the links and all the score bonuses that you got on the first lap will be gone until you pass the beginning again? Links and blue chips are the second most common way to drive up your score. The chips are simple. Get as many as you can and you'll receive a bonus at the end based on how many you've collected when you complete the course. Links, meanwhile, are some of the most fun you can have in any game. Chaining together the collection of chips, stars and flying through those hoops to gain huge score boosts. The challenge is keeping that combo alive for as long as possible. In some courses you can get absolutely obscene chains for enormous bonuses. Keeping that bonus alive requires creativity, using your paraloop to draw items towards you to keep those links alive, or using the environment to propel knights in the right direction. Stars, loops and chips only respawn on completing a lap of the course, so if you do go back, they'll be completely absent, hence the risk versus reward stated earlier. There's tons more besides, like the trick loops, where you use the shoulder buttons to perform as many unique attacks as possible in a short time limit, guiding the lost car in the Mystic Forest to its garage, or the machine in Stick Canyon, that sticks all manner of items onto knights and gives you a bonus based on how much you make it through to the end of the section with. The possibilities are near endless, and that quest for the highest score never ever ends. You first get a taste when chasing those A ranks to unlock the full ending, but it soon becomes extremely addictive. Trying to fit one more lap in to push your score just that little bit further as the clock counts down is exhilarating. It's this that will bring you back to Nights again and again and again. And it's this that truly elevates to the status of score chasing king, in my opinion, worthy of standing amongst the arcade classics that preceded it. So there we have it, folks. 10 things we love about Nights into Dreams. Now, obviously I enjoy this game a lot. It is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. This was meant to be a 10-minute video, went on for almost double that, so apologies, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. If you haven't played Nights before, please give it a try. You can play it on Sega Saturn, which is the best way still to play it, but the PS3, Xbox 360 and PC versions are absolutely solid as well. Xbox version you can play on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S. You can also play the PS2 version, although that is Japan only. However you play it, it's an absolutely phenomenal game. If you've played Nights already and you love Nights, or if you want to see more Nights content, please let us know. Give us a comment below, or get in touch with us on Twitter. You can catch me at SwooperD, you can catch the account at Sega Guys, or you can catch James at the Segaholic. But until next time, stay retro. We will see you on the Sega side.